Hi Scorpio, welcome to your April astrology and tarot forecast. I hope you're all doing very well in lockdown and quarantine, whatever it is. As much as the world seems to have stopped in many ways, for some, it is overactive for others. We think of the people working in the health service, looking after everybody, and it is important in this time of feeling very introspective and very isolated, or indeed if you're working in healthcare, very overrun. The key is to feel connection to the self first and foremost to get us through this unusual time. Scorpio, the energies for you this month are so interesting. Venus enters Gemini on the 3rd of April, and that will Venus will stay there until August 7th, can you believe? Because it will retrograde on May 13th. And this is a prolonged stay in your 8th house. For some, it will teeter between the 7th and the 8th for you, but yeah, it's so interesting because the 8th house is, of course, your house, and it is what I will say, aside from the usual death and taxes, the only things that are actually certain in life, which is why Scorpios are so often very certain as people. But it also marks transformation, which is, again, a certainty for anyone born under the sun, moon, rising of Scorpio. There are many transformations in your life. Call it death, call it rebirth, call it whatever you will, but it is intense. And for you, until August 7th, your love life is going to be transformed in many ways. And I was pre-shuffling before I came onto this because I just wanted to know what is the energies for Scorpio so far. And the Page of Cups and Judgment came out. So did the Eight of Swords. So I feel at the minute, love-wise, you're feeling, of course, restricted. You're feeling inhibited. You're feeling like you can't see how things are going to progress, if ever, in your love life. Particularly if you're single, you're really thinking, what is going to happen for me in the rest of my life? Like, am I ever going to find it? Or if you're separated from someone, you're thinking, is this actually working out? You're not certain in any ways, which is unusual for a Scorpio. But the reason that is happening is because Venus in Gemini is going to really transform your love life. And the Page of Cups and Judgment popping out told me that your love life is having a rebirth, and it wants to rebirth you, believe it or not, to that softer, more innocent, naive version of love that people possess when they're teenagers. You believe that people are good and that you can love freely and that it will be reciprocal and it'll all work out. It won't be this consistent karmic road of do they, don't they, do I, don't I, that Scorpios have experienced. So it actually wants to get you back to that, believe it or not. It's made you very tough. It's made you very strong over the last few years. But it wants to bring you back to that softer side. Venus in Gemini wants to do that. Wants to bring you back to who you were. And until April 11th, Mercury is still in Pisces, your 5th house of love and romance. Mars is in Aquarius, and that's kind of tough for you because it is putting a lot of pressure on you to be active in the home, the very place that many people are confined. So watch your temper with your family or your roommates or whoever it is that you're cooped up with. And if you're cooped up with yourself, watch your temper there too. Yep, watch your words. Queen of Swords and the 10 of Cups. Watch your words with the people around you. If you're dealing with an air sign, it seems to me that there is some kind of common goal. There is more communication. There is more commitment, there is more understanding, but perhaps for many of you this is a lot to do with yourself. It is a lot to do with being comfortable cutting out the dead weight to obtain this 10 of Cups and not knowing when it will be. Perhaps it's deciding that the shallow relationships aren't worth holding on to for fear of being lonely, because you are lonely. Everyone's been isolated, and it is a wonderful time to think about whether the connections you have can be sustained in times of isolation. If they're authentic, they will be there, and if they are not, you are more than happy to let them go. If you think about it, with everybody being as cooped up as they are, communication, if it's not happening, that's not your person. Jupiter conjuncts Pluto on the 4th. This is a big aspect. Venus will trine Saturn just as it moves into Gemini. Venus trine Saturn is so interesting. It is something I have in my natal chart. And ironically, actually, I have it in the same degrees as this is going to be. And I was thinking about it, and although Jupiter conjunct Pluto is the biggest aspect, it's in Capricorn, I know everyone's kind of frustrated with that energy, but for you, it's very much to do with the way that you communicate, being more open about your feelings. If you are upset with somebody, you have to say. If you love somebody, you have to say. Because that is where the truth lies. It might not go the way you want it to. I'm not saying it's going to lead to a 10 of Cups moment necessarily, but you have to be open and honest about how you feel. And if you are consistently hiding who you are in order to protect yourself, you may find yourself having a lot of self-doubt, to be honest, because you're not portraying the realist version of yourself. And when Scorpios are dishonest, you can be secretive all you want, but when you're dishonest about who you are, you get really, really, really touchy. And April 7th, that full moon in Libra, is really going to illuminate the subconscious stuff. Watch your dreams over that period. Over the 6th, 7th, or 8th, watch your dreams. They're going to be so telling. Analyze them. Look them up on Google. Whatever it is that you need to do. Here we have Judgment. And the Ace of Pentacles. For many Scorpios in career, you are looking at a new start. You are deciding that you're not fulfilled, whatever it is. Even if you've lost a job, you're deciding that, you know what? There might be a reason behind all this. There might be a calling. There might be something else that I have to do. Applications. Starting something from scratch that you think is part of a deeper calling, because it is. Mars and Saturn on the 31st, just as we lead into April, have this really tough conjunction in your 4th house. And I really feel as though with Jupiter conjunct Pluto as well in your communication sector, the full moon in Libra in your 12th, and then the new moon in Taurus on in the 22nd, we'll get to that, because Pluto will go retrograde at the end of this month as well. Pluto. Before it goes retrograde, you're going to have a pretty significant turning point with Jupiter conjunct Pluto. You're going to have a much different idea of what it is that you have to do going forward. I mean, look at this energy already. We have the Queen of Swords, 10 of Cups, Ace of Pentacles, and Judgment. It's really very you. Really very you. And it's funny because I think Scorpios oftentimes present as Queen of Swords air signs because you hide so much of your emotions to yourself. And that is when you find yourself in difficulties, because energy doesn't lie, and you can find yourself very mismatched with your career, very mismatched with your relationships, very mismatched with your dynamics. And this all wants to change that. What are you passionate about? Because this Jupiter conjunct Pluto only happens every 13 years. What are you passionate about? It's going to happen 3 times this year. If you are a writer, you will write. If you want to go into the media, you will go into the media. Oh. Even if it means starting afresh completely, you're willing to do it. The Page of Pentacles, he has that naive energy that I was talking about, where he is ready to start something. He doesn't know how long the journey is going to be. He doesn't know how hard it's going to be. He doesn't know, much like a student coming out of university into their first job, he doesn't know how exhausting it's going to be, but he just knows that he knows what he wants. He just knows the path that he is going down for now. If it is lukewarm, it is just no good. Scorpio is looking for deeper purpose, both romantically, both in career. Virus or no virus, do you know what you are being called to sit and think about, being called to sit and do? Okay, Ace of Swords, for sure the writers, the clarity, the singers, the performers. Oh, you're getting so clear on what it is that you want to do. I like it. I like it a lot. The new moon in Taurus on the 22nd in your partnership sector is asking you, with Venus being in your most intimate zone, is asking you to think really carefully about what it is that you want in terms of a partner. And I think for a lot of you, you want someone who's very stable, very secure, someone who will not air your dirty laundry. Death card, somebody like you. And if there is somebody who is shallow or superficial, they will not make it past the first week. I really don't think they will make it past the first week. If it's somebody that is just, meh, you're willing to play the long game, Scorpio. You're willing to see how much patience will pay off. And it will pay off well. 6 of Wands, it will lead you to success. It will lead you to great success, actually, if you can make the decision to pursue it. 2 of Swords. In terms of your romance in general, I think you're very private, 5 of Swords, because you don't want to show too much of your strategy. You don't want anything interfering. 3 of Cups. Oh, the King of Swords. Interesting. The air sign began and ended the reading. I think that's very, very interesting for Scorpios that are dealing with an air sign. We start with the Queen and we end with a King. Very peculiar. I'm just nosy. Ooh, Aquarius and Leo. The opposite ends of the spectrum, that 7th house dynamic. I think as we lead up to the Taurus new moon, there seems to be a connection of sorts here, whereby the circumstances may not seem ideal, but nonetheless there is somebody else's energy that you can't ignore, because it seems to me to be something that was quite possibly a bit flaky, but prevailing. That's interesting. If you're dealing with an air sign where there has been promise of a happily ever after, but there has been some back and forth, there's been some beginnings, there's been some endings. Again, that judgment energy is sort of a rebirth of something. If you're dealing with an air sign, it almost seems to me, Scorpio, that it is something that is quite destined in your life, if only to test you in terms of patience. A lot of this is about learning patience. Slower moving energies of the Page of Pentacles, of the Taurus new moon, because we know that Taurus is quite slow and steady, and as your partnership sign, as the house that rules your partnerships, and that 7th house dynamic, as we see here, operating in the star and strength, to have your partnership zone operated by Taurus means that in terms of love, Scorpio, in your life, you have to learn patience more than anything else. And you have to learn that things should be going slow. If you're a Scorpio that rushes connections and wonders why they keep failing, consider that maybe taking your time would have been a better decision, because you would have gotten to know the person that was so flaky. And perhaps if you made a snap decision based on terms of money and status and what other people would think, you should maybe wonder why you don't feel fulfilled where your career is. Ooh. But certainly in terms of romance, if you are determined to imprint on an earth sign, a Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, that they are the ideal, I think, Scorpio, you will really suffer, and possibly they will as well, because you're trying to make them into something they're not. Try going slower. Try getting to know a person. You have all the time in the world at the minute. Things are moving slowly. You're just going to have to deal with that, and it will teach you patience that you need in order to have the partnership that is balancing for you. And perhaps, ironically, even if an air sign seemed really, 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 really problematic, or a Leo seemed really, really, really problematic, it could actually work out because both of you learned patience. Interesting. Doesn't have to be an air sign. Could actually be a Capricorn. Could be anybody. But it's certainly someone that is not as governed by their emotions as you are. And it is quite possibly what they find so intriguing about you. And as you look to the future, you feel a little bit less defensive and you're ready to accept that the things you've been doing haven't been working. And if you've been really, really hurt by a Libra, you're finally getting a little bit of clarity, or that Libra full moon is bringing you a lot of psychic awareness, psychic clarity in your solitude. And in that solitude, you decide that you're going to do the work. You're going to get over the self-imposed restrictions that you have mentally on yourself, on your ideals that make you so very defensive with people that want to get close to you. And you're finally going to see what this Four of Wands energy is like, because you have to be stable for this to manifest. 2020 is all about four energy. It's about stability. It's about progress. It's about discipline. It's about patience. Playing the long game. Jupiter in Capricorn, your ruler in Capricorn. It's all about learning to play the long game and winning. And I think that you can win. By the end of this month, by the end of April, you are on to something very successful. And I think, dare I say, something that makes you very, very, very sure of yourself. And as we notice in the King of Swords, there's this little butterfly at the top, marking the transformation. Perhaps you're transforming from a queen to a king. That's not gender specific. That's just saying that you're moving up a level in the game of life. But certainly the wish that you have regarding a partner who is strong, who is self-sufficient, who is stable, seems to be coming to fruition in some way. It is okay for Scorpio, even as a very, very emotional sign, to date people that are more practical or logical. It can be that 7th house balance, provided they have a heart and a soul, and you're not dealing with the narcissistic energies that so often play to Scorpio's ego traps, because fixed signs all have them. Provided you can finally see your worth for what it is and accept that being a beginner at something doesn't mean that you are less than. Seeing as being an expert at something doesn't mean that you're better than. It's very Scorpio to have the 10 of Cups and the Death card and the Star and Judgment all in the same reading. It makes a lot of sense because it is very transformative energy. Venus being in Gemini, very transformative indeed. When the full moon in Libra occurs in the 7th, Venus and Mars are actually trining, one being in your intimate zone, one being in your house. So if you get a message while you're quarantined, that makes your heart flutter a little bit. Perhaps that's pointing you towards what it is that you really want. Let's get into the extended reading for Scorpios. Because this 10 of Cups right here, and the Judgment card right here, and the Star right here are all telling a bigger story than just what we see. So I will see you in the extended listed below. Bye, Scorpio.